of the free and the home of the brave.
Avinu Shebashamayim, Father in heaven, creator of all life, in your hand is the soul of every living thing and the breath of all creatures. Almighty God, who favored the children of Israel with his abundant light, we are here to affirm that this light continues to shine within us. We are here to remember the martyrs of the Holocaust, who were killed for only one reason, because they proudly bore the name of your first child, the nation of Israel. We are not here only to weep, dear God, for even though our hearts and minds are stricken with the horrors and atrocities that were committed against the 6 million holy and beloved Kedoshim, we are also here to honor them and to proclaim the everlasting sanctity of their being. For in our scriptures is proclaimed the words of Habakkuk the prophet, Israel shall never die, and they shall truly never die, although millions were slaughtered. The mighty ancient empires have faded to mere memories, but your beloved Israel still lives on. For they are part of something greater, higher, and stronger than the dreams of their executioners. They are the torchbearers of your holy name and ways. Before our eyes appears the integrity of a people in whose veins has lingered for so long the words and images of your holy Torah. Though physically removed from the face of the earth, their faith and cry of Shema Yisrael still reverberates throughout the world. Grant us courage, O Lord, that we may strengthen our hearts and take into our consciousness the purity and righteousness of the millions of innocent people whose lives were cut short. We pray for your guidance as we affirm our sacred duty as their descendants. We are here not only to reflect upon the lost generation, but to actively commit ourselves to perpetuating their memory by continuing their hallowed actions and values that they practiced every day. Almighty God, we are here to affirm that our lives as Jews will be a monument worthy of their sacrifice. In your covenant, you have blessed our forefather Abraham that his descendants will multiply as the stars in heaven. May it be your will, God of mercy, that you grant us the strength and vigor so that we can shine and illuminate the darkness of this long, bitter exile. And speedily in our days, may we merit the coming of the Messiah, when man will know of no pain or suffering. And let us say, Amen.
Hugely appreciated, sir. And I want to also welcome a couple other special guests, our rabbis from the local community here in Miami. I'll be very brief. I've been to Israel a number of times in my life. Never have I been to Jerusalem in the 15 or 20 times that I visited there that I didn't make a special trip over to the Holocaust Museum, Yad Vashem, and I know I'm probably butchering the pronunciation. But if you've never been there, if you've never been to Israel, you should put it on your bucket list. It is very much worth going. And when you go to Yad Vashem, to the memorial, it's got many aspects to it that are very much worth seeing. But the things that struck me when I first went there, they have a huge display case with 1 million baby shoes in it. Little shoes that you would put on a child before they're even old enough to walk. 1 million of them. And the only reason those young people were killed was because they were Jews. They did nothing else in their young, innocent lives. And another display case is 1 million pair of glasses, eyeglasses, for men, women, and children. And once again, the only offense that these people committed, if you will, is the fact that they were born Jews. It's a very difficult place to visit, Yad Vashem is, I think. But for me as an American by birth and as a Roman Catholic by faith, it gives me, when I visit there, a very strange sense of pride in the Jewish people. Because not only, despite all of the horror they endured, some of them survived and today have thrived in the world. I'm reminded of the story of Anne Frank. Many of you have probably read her book, her diary. It used to be required reading in America. It isn't, I don't think, any longer. It should be. This young Jewish girl wrote, just before she was taken to a concentration camp. Of course, she had hidden out for years in the attic of a neighbor, and she was betrayed, her and her family. She was 15 when she wrote, In spite of everything, I still believe that people are really good at heart. Shortly after that, she lost her life, murdered at Bergen-Belsen death camp. The two great responses, I think, to the Holocaust in my lifetime, nearly, was the creation of the State of Israel in 1948, so that no Jew, regardless of where they're born, would ever be listed as stateless again. And also the determination by the United States and all nations of goodwill that we'd all try to abide, at least, by the Bible's injunction that do not stand idly by on the blood of your neighbor. Then there's a story of an army chaplain, Rabbi Herschel Shakater. Again, I'm mispronouncing. He just passed away a few weeks ago at the age of 95. The rabbi was an Orthodox rabbi assigned to the Third Army's 8th Corps. He was the first chaplain to reach Buchenwald, the death camp, and famously brought the thousands of Jewish survivors word of their own liberation. Imagine what that must have been like, how stunned those concentration camp survivors must have been when suddenly they were liberated. And through the camp, this almost crazy rabbi was running, saying, "Jews, you're liberated. Jews, you're liberated." He stayed in the death camp for months, attending to the needs of his people. I have a personal story of my own childhood growing up in Boston, in the city. Virtually every man in my life, my dad, my uncles, all of the neighbors were World War II vets. Drinking beer on the stoop out in front or a barbecue in the alleyway, believe it or not. And there was always this banter back and forth with these guys, you know, the Army guys needling the Navy guys about who had it easier, and the Marines saying it was tougher in the Pacific, and you Army guys didn't do jack in Europe, and the Air Corps guys saying it was harder over, you know, and on and on and on. It was always good-natured and good banter. They'd occasionally talk a little bit about the battles they've seen and a little bit about the friends they'd lost, but not very much. Those were painful memories. And then there was Mr. McCarthy. Mr. McCarthy was a soldier during World War II, and he was one of the liberating forces, one of the first Americans to walk into one of the death camps. And when Mr. McCarthy spoke, everyone was quiet, because what he had seen and the tales he told about a young 19-year-old soldier going into a death camp would stun us every time we heard the story. And he didn't tell it often, but when he told it, he always cried. One simple prayer and song that I'm told by my Jewish friends is most associated with the Holocaust. It's called, "I Believe." I'm told by my friends that it is perhaps the ultimate anthem of survival. A version of this was sung actually by Pope John Paul, the first pope to visit and worship in a synagogue in the modern era. I won't even try the Hebrew, gentlemen. But it goes, "I believe with complete faith in the coming of the Messiah. And even though he may tarry, nonetheless I will wait for him. I will wait for him every day for him to come." The GIs who walked into those death camps, ladies and gentlemen, they asked, how could this happen? General Eisenhower, General Patton, General Bradley visited one of the death camps together, and they asked, how could this happen? The world saw the pictures of the death camps, and all of mankind asked, how could this happen? 3 generations have come and gone since 1945, and they have all asked, how could this happen? We gather here today and listen. We will listen to this wonderful man, and we should all ask ourselves, how can this happen? And I believe the answer to this question is because millions upon millions of otherwise decent human beings looked away and said, it's none of my business. It's not my concern. Could it happen again? Yes, I believe it could. If we as decent human beings forget. But perhaps we can avoid it from ever happening again if we think of ourselves as Jews when we think of the Holocaust. Thanks very much.
Our honored guest today was born in 1928 in Czechoslovakia's Carpathian Mountains. One of seven children, our speaker suffered sequential deportations beginning in the spring of 1944 through a ghetto, through several Auschwitz camps, and ultimately to Buchenwald, where the American army liberated him. Despite multiple family deaths and a significant reintegration battle he endured, traveling back to Czechoslovakia, England, and ultimately the US. He embraced a true resilience, joining the US Army in the Korean War, thriving as a businessman in Georgia, and continuing to volunteer to educate and reach out to audiences like us today. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Mr. Alex Gross.
Good morning. Can you hear me back there? Okay. I'm so honored to be here because not only do I love America and Americans and human beings, but for me to be sitting next to such a lovely general and to be greeted by so many people is just beyond human imagination. But let me tell you a little bit about myself. I was born in a small village in the Carpathian Mountain. Our parents were very, very lovely people, but according to American standards, we were way, way, way below poverty level. We didn't have bathrooms. We didn't have even toilets. We had outhouses. But we were a happy family. 6 brothers, 1 sister. Our father, may he rest in peace, was a very, very strict man, but he was a good man. And if there ever was a little angel on the face of the earth, our mother was it. Being born, I was the youngest of the boys, and 1 sister was younger than me. Suddenly, Czechoslovakia was taken over by Hungary, and they started discriminating against the Jews because Hungary became part of the German Empire. My best friend, Jonci, he and I were very, very close. We used to play soccer together. We were swimming together. Across the street neighbor, we were unbelievably close. Suddenly, he joined the Hitler Youth. And one day, I was coming out of the synagogue, and I was attacked by a group of Hitler Youths, and he is one of them, and he chased me. I kept on running till I finally at a bridge, I stopped and I grabbed him. I said, Jonci, how could you hate me? You're my best friend. Oh, but du bist a Jude, you're a Jew. I asked him, Jonci, did anybody ask you whether you were going to be born a Jew or what? Nobody. He says, yeah, but Hitler tells us we got to get rid of the Jews. What is so important for you as Americans and military people to realize that whatever you do every moment of the day will affect you the rest of your life. When the Russians captured my friend Jonci, who became a German officer, when I was liberated from the camps, I came home and they hanged him in the center of the village. I had to run away from my village because I couldn't take to see my best friends hate me. I went to the capital of Hungary, and I was lucky. In those days, an apprentice didn't get paid. But because I had a good voice, I got a position in the very famous voice choir of the Dohányilica synagogue, which is the largest synagogue in Budapest. They used to give us free cookies and milk, so that sustained me. But I missed my loving parents and brothers, so I came home. just when I arrived, it was around Passover, just before Passover, they surrounded our village and took all the Jews and shoved us into a ghetto, an old brick factory. No food, no water, no shelter. And my mother, may she rest in peace, kept on looking at us and kept on begging us and put her hands on my face, and she begged me, no matter what, please stay alive. You know, I was no different than any young boy. Why is she asking me that? Unfortunately, she had a feeling that something horrible was going to happen. After being a while in the ghetto, they shoved us into cattle cars. It took us 4 or 5 days, no food, no water. Next thing we knew, the cattle car opens up, and one of the prisoners in a striped uniform keeps on asking us, "Sag ihm, du bist 18 years old. Tell him you're 18 years old." I looked at him and said, "You're crazy. I'm not even 14. I'm 13 years old." But little did I realize, when the SS man asked me how old I was, if I wouldn't have told him 18, I would have been sent straight to the gas chambers. Unfortunately, my beloved mother and father, all my uncles and aunts were sent straight to the gas chambers because they were already over 30 years old. Next thing I knew, I had beautiful blonde hair. They tore my beautiful hair off, took my clothes away, and burned a tattoo into my arm. And they said, "Forget your name. You have only a number." And believe me, it was very difficult for me to stand for hours in the cold weather with my hand out so they could see the number. And then we had the number also on the striped uniform. No underwear, no shoes, just wooden clocks. And it gets very, very, very cold up there in the mountains. I mean, really cold. From Birkenau, I was sent to the main camp of Auschwitz, and to Auschwitz III, which is Buna, or Bunawek. The average lifespan in that camp was 2 months. I was there for a little over 8 months. Not only because lack of food, but they used to give us this much, what they call bread, which was mostly made out of sawdust. And we had a canteen, nothing else but a canteen with a spoon. You lost the spoon, you were dead. And they used to give us, if we were lucky, once a day, soup which had a little bit of bread in it. I was so happy in that camp, believe it or not, because I saw my brother Sam. He was in the same camp, but unfortunately, we were not allowed to even look at each other, because if they would have caught me looking at him, both of us would have been dead. But fortunately, I was there for a little over 8 months. Next thing, the work was very hard, but the work that kept us alive because it kept our mind of our hunger pain, of our diseases. Then the Russians were coming close by and they started evacuating us. And by the way, I was very lucky one time. As they marched us across the street, one of the trucks that was carrying food dropped some tomatoes, and I jumped and grabbed a couple of tomatoes and saved them to give them to my brother. But I wasn't allowed to talk to him, so I just threw it to him. From there, they started marching us out of the 40,000 people. from the camp, by the time we arrived to the next destination, which was Gleiwitz, only about 4,000 of us were alive, because anybody that slowed down was shot. And they dug deep, big ditches, threw the bodies in, threw gasoline, and burned them. In Gleiwitz, I saw my brother again. I said, oh, a miracle. But we were not allowed to even look at each other, nor talk to each other. Finally, in Gleiwitz, they put us into open coal-carrying cars. You know what a coal-carrying car is? No top. And this is in December. The average temperature over there is maybe 10 degrees, 12 degrees. And if you go 20, 30 miles and no top, no food, believe me, out of the 120 people in that cattle car, by the time we arrived to the next destination, which was 4 or 5 days later, I don't know, only 4 of us were alive. I was very lucky because every time we went under a bridge, some ice fell down, and I was able to put it in my mouth. Buchenwald was not as horrible as other camps. They actually gave us some decent soup. They gave us some decent bread. And I thought I arrived in heaven. And believe me, it was heaven. Then I saw my brother Sam again. And I thought, oh, maybe I can find the rest of the family. But after a while, in Buchenwald, they started evacuating the camp again. And I said, I don't have the strength. I'm not going to start marching. And I just laid down. And no matter how they were kicking me, no matter how they were beating me, in fact, a bullet hit me in my arm, it didn't make any difference. I didn't have that much blood anyway. I just laid there. Next thing, my brother Sam pulls up. He says, oh, I don't have the strength to walk either. I'll just lay here too. And they tried to get us out, march us out in the worst way. And a miracle of miracle finally happened again. A third brother pulls up. He was in totally different camps. He was in Fünftag and other camps. And he said, oh my God, Yankele, Schmielku. And lo and behold, we just laid there. No matter what they did, we just laid there. Finally, they stopped beating us, and I started crawling back to the barrack, but I didn't have the strength to go back to the barrack. So I just laid there. And a miracle of miracle finally happened. I heard a tank. It didn't sound like a German tank. I looked up and I said, oh my God, this is not a German tank. And I saw the turret. The turret opened up. I said, oh my God. I saw a helmet. It wasn't a German helmet. And if ever there was a miracle, I saw a black face. And I said, oh, God sent angels and they're black. And believe me, if there ever was an angel on the face of the earth, that American soldier got out of the tank, came and picked me up, put a straw in my mouth, had him start feeding me, had him wash me. And just to show you what a small world this is, in 1972, I was lecturing at Emory University quite often. And I'm sitting with the president of Emory University, Dr. Crawford, Dr. Blumenthal, and a few other people. And I kept on looking at a guy. He looks at me. He gets up, and I get up, and that's a U.S. soldier that saved my life in Buchenwald. I helped him start the black newspaper, and unfortunately, he passed away. I was at his deathbed. But his daughter owns it now, and we're very, very close friends. I think what is so important for you to realize that when I came to America, I wanted to go into the U.S. Army when I was in Chicago, and they wouldn't take me because I wasn't here long enough. So I called up my aunt in Elwood City. I said, Aunt Hilda, I want to go into the Army. She said, are you crazy, you idiot? I said, please. She called me back the next day. Okay, idiot, get your butt back. And I'm very happy to say I was in the U.S. Army because they wanted somebody young and sexy that passed 7 languages. They put me in the intelligence. And I can only tell you I'm so proud of it. I was the happiest man in the world because I was able to show America the appreciation for saving my life. And after I came out of the Army, I started a business with my brother, and we became the largest package home company in the United States. And then we developed a whole city outside of Atlanta, Georgia. So just to show you, America has the opportunities that I never dreamed of. I've been retired now for a little over 20 years. I'm very involved in Holocaust programs. I'm a volunteer at the Holocaust Memorial every Thursday, and I have to be there again Friday too because I got a big group coming. And I go to a lot of schools. I devote my time and energy and money to charities and try to help other people. Because this country, beyond a shadow of doubt, is not only the most wonderful country in the world, but it has the best people in the world. And I hope each and every one of you will appreciate it. Now, I'll leave myself open to questions if you have. Yes.
When you were a young child, before your friend joined you, the general sense of feeling that
Not until the Nazis took over our area. Before that, as I told you, my best friend Yonchi was a Catholic boy, and we were inseparable. We were playing soccer together. And by the way, any of you here play soccer? Any of you are a soccer player here? Ha. I played for United States against Sweden. So I was a pretty good soccer player. No, we didn't know it, but certainly the Hitler Youth taught them to hate Jews for no other reason but because they were Jews. How did I sustain myself and find the strength to continue to go on? Number one, as I told you, our mother was truly an angel on the face of the earth. And when she put her hands on our face and she begged us, no matter what, please stay alive, I could never, ever break my promise to my mother. So no matter how I suffered, no matter the hunger. Look, I didn't realize I had typhoid, diphtheria, every disease imaginable. I just continued on. When I was liberated, the U.S. soldier carried me. I shrunk almost a foot in the camp. And that's why I was so happy when I was able to go into the U.S. Army to show my appreciation to this country.
A little earlier, that millions and millions and millions of people have asked, how could this happen?
Millions of, it's still a puzzle to me. How could perfectly normal people suddenly become haters? How and why? And the only thing I can think of is the fact that Hitler wanted the Germans to rule the world and rule every human being. They depressed not only Jews, but they depressed afterwards. They went after other people. They went after Czechs, and then Polish and the Russians. I don't know why. I don't know how people can suddenly, instead of being good human beings, become haters. It's just beyond me. And I hope to God it'll never happen again anywhere in the world. Thank you, General. This is very important. That's why this country, beyond the shadow of doubt, is the admiration of the entire world, because we are free, we are able to do what we want to do, we are able to eat what we want to eat, and get a job, whatever we want to do. If you study hard in school, you can become whatever you want. That's why it's so important for us to realize that this is really heaven on the face of the earth. Any other questions?
Ladies and gentlemen, join me in thanking Mr. Gross for...
Thank you.
Mr. Gross, I mean, I think I speak for the group, and like to think I speak for all decent human beings in this country and in anywhere in the world. What you've shared with us today, I think, will be seared into our souls. And as a very, very, very small token, I'd like to give you this Southcom plaque. I wish I could give you more, but I can't give you any more.
You give me everything when you serve this country.
Well, there you go. And even from an old Marine to a maybe a little bit older soldier, thanks so very much.
Thank you. I just want you to know that the first person to get me to speak on the Holocaust was a Catholic priest. I befriended him, and he kept on after me. Alex, you got to come to my school. I said, no way, Jose, and I just walked away. One day I walked into my office, and my secretary tells me you got a guest. And the father was sitting there. I said, Miss Wallison, what is he sitting there? Why? He says, he'll tell you. He says, you're coming with me to school. And believe me, after I spoke to the school, I was shaking for 2 weeks, because it brought back some, not only horrors that I endured, but losing my beloved mother and father, and how grateful I am to be in this wonderful country. God bless you all. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, we invite you to meet Mr. Gross in the lobby by following General Kelly and our guest speaker there for some light refreshments. This concludes today's ceremony. Thank you for taking the time to make this a day of remembrance.